Today we are in Glenmont, Ohio, a small town in between Columbus and Cleveland, Ohio. We are at this stunning wedding venue and treehouse resort. They have 16 total units, 10 of them which are treehouses like the one behind me, and this absolutely amazing wedding venue. Brides and grooms fly from all across the country to come stay and enjoy their special day at this wedding venue. And they stay at the treehouses during their wedding, which is amazing. We are sitting down with the owner and founder, Kevin Mooney, to discuss everything about short-term rentals, how he built this property, and much, much more. I'm so excited to show you everything that Mohican Treehouse Resort and Wedding Venue has to offer. This is Experiential Travel. Kevin, thank you so much for being on the podcast again. You are our second person that we've done now a repeat podcast with, from Zoom to now in person, after staying in your lovely treehouse resort and wedding venue. I mean, we've been to a significant amount of short-term rental properties and different resorts. I'll tell you what, yours is truly something spectacular. We were able to stay in a couple of different tree houses. We were able to be in this beautiful wedding venue, and what you've built is, quite frankly, exceeded every expectation I had. And so thank you so much for being on this podcast again.
Well, thank you for having me on here. I feel honored, and we love being on it, and we love we're connected with your viewers. And I have to say thanks to my Amish, though, when you praised my building, and I'll take every step of that. I'll take the pat on the back, because I think this is one of the most beautiful places on earth. If you're going to get married at a wedding venue and you like this place, it's it. If it's not your cup of tea, it might not be. But if you like this, you're going to love it, because it's just something you just can't explain or show in pictures. You have to walk the grounds and see the beautiful structures. And I have to, once again, thanks to Amish carpentry work for that.
Well, it's the perfect blend between natural wood and green. And I think that's like every Pinterest board I've ever seen about a wedding is a gorgeous wood, whether it's stained or just natural wood, with a tremendous amount of greenery. Blend of those two.
We're 75 acres of mostly wooded trees. I mean, it was tough to build this wedding venue because we had to cut down so many trees for the parking lot and the structure.
So I wanted to basically frame this conversation is we've done a podcast before, and I don't want to repeat the podcast we did previously. I do want to dive deeper into a lot of those subjects. There might be some repeat parts, but I want to definitely dive deeper into some subjects that I wasn't able to ask last time. So let's take us back to the beginning again. On choosing this market, you're from Cleveland, you and your wife, high school sweethearts, which is amazing. What made you choose this market in Glenmont?
I'd have to say, really, I grew up coming down here on weekends. I had a lot of fun at my friend's farm that's not far from here. But I also looked at where the best place was to put a lodging business. And after looking at different markets like Hocking Hills, Ohio, I know that's a great place. That's gold to do a lodging business down there. But I wanted to do something between Cleveland and Columbus. And I wanted something away from the highway. I wanted something in a remote area where when you're driving into the wedding venue, you may see chickens on the road. You'll see deer, cows, and just the natural beauty of it, really. I mean, when you get here, you think you're in the rolling hills of Ohio or West Virginia or maybe even Colorado.
Yeah, I call it the 60-30-10 rule because I find the most beneficial markets for short-term rentals are 60 minutes from a large city. 30 minutes from a final destination, and then 10 minutes from civilization. And I feel like your property is directly in the middle of that, where you're about, let's say, like an hour 15 from Cleveland, an hour-ish from Columbus.
Yes.
So you have those two markets that are flooding you with interest both ways.
Yes.
Then you're 30 minutes, less from the Mohican. It's the Mohican
River, Mohican Valleys.
And then you have 10 minutes from the closest city, which is just right here. You have a McDonald's and a gas station and everything else that you would need.
You're right. It really does dial in. And what I like is we're in between Cleveland and Columbus. So you're getting two big markets that I'm drawing from that really want to get away from home.
From the market standpoint, do you find more travelers coming from out of state, out of places, from Columbus or from Cleveland?
We find most of the people, I shouldn't say most of them, I would say that a large percentage, it used to be 50% came from Columbus or 40%, and 40% Cleveland, and then the rest was mixed from out of state. But now it's going up because Columbus is growing so much. So more like 60% is Columbus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Columbus is really taking over occupancy-wise.
Yes.
So then you find this market and you decide on, I'm going to do something around here. What drew you to this?
Well, it's a little bit of a long story. I had a consulting business that I had for 15 years. And I sold it to my partner, and I wanted to do something different. And I was coming down here on weekends. I came down here for probably 10 years with my kids before I started this lodging business. And I'd bring them down here to ride dirt bikes and ATVs, and just to get away from the city. So really, I originally bought it for a second home. And then after I sold my business, I decided I wanted to do something different. And I thought, well, God blessed me with 77 acres, 75, depending on where you read it. What am I going to do with that? I thought, one day I may meet her or him, and our maker may say, what did you do with that? I gave you 77 acres. Did you put a barbed wire around it? Did you fence it off and put do not enter signs on it? And I thought, how can I make $1 and share what I have? So I thought, it doesn't take a lot of land. You don't need 75 acres or 77 or even 7 acres. You could buy 5 acres and put a successful lodging business on there. I've seen some small pop-ups have less than that. So you really don't need a lot of acres. You just have to pick the right spot and make sure you're allowed to build rental lodging units there.
You decide to choose this market, and it's gorgeous. You're mid-consulting company while you decide to buy this land. Walk me through kind of the purchase of this land.
The purchase of the land really was for a second home to get away from Cleveland. But coming from a business background, before I started the business, I looked at this property just as if I was buying it. So I looked at if I was going to be able to make rental units and out of them, what I had. And then I looked into the growth of the area. And when I built this structure and the lodging units, I projected that in this area, they would have a lot of lodging 10 years down the road, which is kind of interesting because it didn't happen. And I love that I was wrong because I think I'm normally right when it comes to business. And I am normally right all the time, just about. But I was wrong in this situation. And what happened is this area doesn't want growth. And I thought because I have a campground with 600 acres, 50 yards that way, and I have another campground, 2 properties down the road, I thought this tourist area would want more lodging in it. I thought, my God, tourism's huge here. They have hundreds of thousands of people coming down the river. Look, on canoes, renting canoes. I thought this would be the perfect place, but I was wrong. Probably 90% of the building permits that were pulled in the last 10 years to build lodging structures here were mine. They have my name on it, which doesn't make sense. If you go to Hocking Hills, you'll look at Hocking Hills, and Hocking Hills has had probably 300% growth since I built my first lodging unit here. 300%. This place has had probably less than 5%, and I'm 90% of the 5%.
Hey, if you already have your market, your land, and now you're looking to buy some structures, check out Stargazing Homes. They have fully built tiny homes on wheels that are built to ANSI 11.9.5 standards that are built around stargazing. They are built either on wheels or not on wheels, and they can be craned onto regular foundation, but they are the perfect short-term rental tiny home that you can literally put anywhere. You can go on-grid, you can go off-grid, whatever use that you need, we have them already operating in Arizona. And if you are interested in buying your own stargazing home unit, feel free to reach us on our website at stargazinghomes.com. Now back to the episode. You have your consulting business. You buy this piece of land for your family to do ATVs. Is there anything on this piece of land when you buy it originally?
No. The only thing we had were trailers, that you tow behind your car. There's 2 of those and a septic tank and water and electric. So I had to add everything there. I had to run the gas lines, more septic. I think I've probably spent $200,000 in septics so far, because when we do the tree houses, we don't do it that they're all together. Like I have some tree houses on one septic tank. Well, I could physically put 3 on it, according to the regulations. It was built for 9 tree houses, or septic tanks. But since I only have 1 treehouse on it, the cost of the treehouse jumps a lot. So really, you name it, we added it here.
Yeah. So just for clarification on that, did you do 1 per septic unit so that you could have gravity fall and based off of the land? You didn't want to pump up to a septic unit?
I did a lot of research in the pump, and at the time, I was told they weren't reliable and that I'd have more problems than if I was to fall the waste.
So you invested in more septic tanks so you could just do a gravity fall to each septic unit instead of having to do multiple septic units.
Right, I found a way to put it downhill.
I think that's a very important note for people that are wanting to learn how to do this, is when you're doing septic, whether or not you're going to invest in 1 septic unit and try to pump up to septic units, or just invest a little bit more and gravity fall your septic units, which kind of life-proofs your builds in that sense, because it's less maintenance.
And one small thing, in my businesses, I try to reduce the risk of something happening. And the fact that pump is mechanical, it runs on electricity, that bothers me. I mean, to think if I had 16 pumps here, one would be breaking a year. That's 1 or 2 nights lodging I'm giving back. So I would rather spend a little more money and not have that risk.
Which is a great insight, because you're increasing the upfront capital, but you're decreasing the reoccurring expense of pumps breaking.
Yes.
And I think that decision, we've done something similar. Each one of our properties have their own individual septic, and they're all gravity filled. So basically, all of our wastewater or gray and black water runs straight through ABS piping straight to our septic unit, and we don't have to deal with pumps breaking or anything of that sort, because you have each one on its own separate line. I think that's extremely smart.
And I really think that upfront money, which is more money at the beginning, always wins. I think you overall, if you had that philosophy with everything you do, like my philosophy of doing things nice, it's more expensive, but it wins.
You end up saving more money in the long run, but more capital intensive heavy in the upfront.
Yes. And the other thing I tell people that are thinking about getting into this is, you're not going to remember that 99-cent cheeseburger, but that $20 steak that was effing delicious, you're going to be like, man, that rocked it, You're going to remember that great experience.
So you bought this land, it had trailers on it, it had water on it, it had septic on it, and it had power on it.
Right.
It was kind of nice that you didn't have to pull power. As for water, did you have to do more wells than just?
Yeah, yes. I think I probably have, I have 5 wells on the property, which is a lot, because at the beginning, I could run 5 units off 1 well. But once again, it's what I'm doing. I'm doing more expensive units, my cost, because once you get into another well, your well might be $20,000. Or what if it's $60,000 or $70,000? You don't know that going in.
And from a price standpoint, you're about $1,000 every 100 feet, $10,000 every 100 feet.
I think you're right. I think it's around that.
That's in Arizona. We have to go down 10,000 feet to hit water, and it's $1.1 million.
Oh wait, I stand corrected. No, it is a lot more than that. My wells. I think my one well. Most of my wells are 120 to maybe 300 feet, and none of them were less than, I think, $15,000 or $20,000. So it's a lot more per foot.
Did you know that when you originally bought the land? Like, did you do any of that type of research for water utilities?
No, I didn't.
When you were buying the piece of land, what due diligence did you do utility-wise?
I hate to say it because, I wanted the property for other reasons. I didn't do much research. I was like, okay, it has water, electric, septic, I'll take it. And then when I started, when I first bought it, I never thought I'd be in the lodging business. It just happened. My partner came to me one day and said, I want to buy you out. And when we talked and I sold it to him, I wasn't planning on. I literally went from working to being retired in 40 days. 40 days before I retired, I didn't know I was retiring 40 days after that. So it was kind of a shocker. So I really didn't plan for this business. So a lot of stuff here evolved. And I'm not like your typical investor. I didn't do all the research because I had the property already. And I figured if I have all this land, even if it's more expensive, it's going to be worth it. And I did the numbers in my head before I built each unit. Before I did the tree houses, I built 3 cabins and I ran all the utilities for each of those off the same units. The electric was the same electric pole, the water was the same well, the septic was the same. So everything else was an add-on.
So you bought the land while you were still doing consulting. Then did you build anything while you were still consulting?
I built one house on the structure.
And which house is that?
It's the Mohican house.
So that was the first one while you're still doing consulting?
Yeah. Yes.
And then were you doing anything while you were still consulting? Did you build anything else while you were still consulting?
No, just that house.
So then your partner ends up buying you out from the consulting. What's the timeline from the time you got bought out from consulting to when you were like, let me not retire. Let me try to do a short-term rental business?
It was 5 years. It was 5 years.
So so then you stopped consulting and 5 years pass. Did you build anything within those 5 years?
No. I really just thought I could retire. And I quickly became bored and didn't do anything productive. And after a while, I thought, I have to start doing something, and I looked at my projections for the next, 30 years. I was 42 years old when I tried to retire. And my kids were starting college at the time. And then I was doing my projections where I figured out in the next 8 years, I'm going to have 2 kids in college at the same time. And for 10 years, I'm going to have 1 kid in college. So I thought, I better start some business up. And I thought, what could I do? So I thought, well, I'm going to do a lodging business. And I started doing my research and I quickly learned that 3 cabins wasn't going to work for my budget. So I wanted to do the wedding venue. So I started doing the wedding venue. And in the middle of doing the wedding venue, a friend calls me up that owned the zip line that's down the business. And he calls me up and he said, I want to stop over, show you this treehouse book. And he stops in and I looked at the book and a light went off. It was like an oh Jesus moment. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going down the wrong road. I'm going to build tree houses. And he said, this guy wrote the book and he taught me how to build tree houses at his class. The gentleman's name is Pete Nelson from Treehouse Masters. So I said, well, get him on the phone. He pulled out his flip phone, called Pete. We had Pete here in 2 weeks. And Pete designed my first tree house, White Oak. He designed that and his guys came out and built it. And then 8 months later, when I couldn't rent that tree house out, I couldn't give it away, I would call my friends and say, hey, why don't you stay in my treehouse? At the time, no one knew about tree houses. And my friends were like, fuck, F you. I'm not sleeping in a tree. I had some friends go, I knew you were whacked. I knew this day was going to come. You're out of your mind. You want me to sleep in a treehouse? I'm like, yes, come stay in this treehouse. And I said, look, there's a bed, there's a bathroom, there's air conditioning, there's heat, there's everything you want. 2 of the tree houses we have steam rooms in them. It has everything you want. So when I couldn't rent out that first treehouse, 8 months after I tried to rent it out, Pete called me and said, how would you like to be on this TV show? And I said, Pete, I'd like to be on college radio. Get me on anything. TV's great. I love it. So he came out and we built the treehouse and we didn't finish it. There was no water in it. There was no electric. There was no septic. Because it's TV, we had a generator underneath it. We had water pumped in, nothing was done. So I didn't finish the treehouse until 6 weeks before the show aired. I waited months because I was trying to finish this wedding venue. And in the meanwhile, while I'm building this wedding venue, my builder walks off. So I'm really in a state of confusion at the time. So I'm trying to, so we finished the red treehouse, the little red that they did on the show right before the show aired. And then once the show aired, people got it. And they're like, oh my God, I want to stay in a treehouse. And ever since then, I have people flying from California, New York City, all over.
What was the thought process with spending money, building the lodges, building the first tree house? You're not making money at this point.
Correct.
Was there ever a turn back time where you looked at yourself and said, maybe I guess I got this wrong?
No, that's a problem I have. I never think that. You know what? I mean, I do when I'm convinced that I'm wrong, but normally I'm really optimistic. You know, as one of my employees told me the other day, he said, I went to pick something up and do something for you. And he said, Kevin, I looked at the guy and I said, you know, you don't understand. My boss, he doesn't want to hear no. He thinks that there's a way to solve this problem. Is there any way we could do it? And my buddy Jim said, Kevin, he figured it out. He said, I'm standing there telling him, I can't tell you no. And he figured a way to get it done. And that's kind of how I feel. But, you know, I had my wife as my partner, and she's been fantastic. We've had this great combination. And her and I have ran doubles, duplexes, for probably 20 years before that. We bought them when we were young, fixed them up, rented them out. So we kind of had the lodging locked down. You know, I would walk in, I'd be half of it. I would do the plastering, the wallpapering, whatever, and then she'd come in and do the design. You know, so we had a good team. And I think that I was really fortunate because we kind of took off at the right time. You know, the wedding venue quickly was getting booked. And we started doing weddings on Sundays. You know, I asked my friends, how many weddings have you gone on a Sunday through Wednesday? And they're like, none. And I'm like, we do them every week. Every week this year, I will have a wedding on a Sunday or a Tuesday.
It's incredible.
During the season. Now, when it's snowing, no. But yeah, it's just something unique. But I'm also looking at a structure where I just want to rent it out, Lex, 90 days a year. If I could get this 90 days a year, I don't need to do 100 dinners at my restaurant a night. If I do 100 weddings a year, I'm great. And the way I kept getting through that awe moment that it's gonna fail is, as I was telling my son on the drive down here, my son has a business in Washington State, and he has a treehouse called Klickitat Treehouse. And I was telling him, as he's growing, just set your goals small. You know, just make a long checklist. And I tell entrepreneurs all the time that if you want to be successful, you have to write it down. You have to see it. When you're in the car, driving down to wherever you're going, if it's to Walmart or a long drive through the country, talk to yourself. Put the mirror on yourself and say, look, I'm going to effing do this. I'm going to make this. And I've always done that. Every time I've ridden in the car down here, I've talked to myself and I'm like, you know what? Look, we're going to get this done. You know, you got to keep repping yourself because you're going to fail and you're going to have people watching you fail and they're going to love it. So you have to be strong. You have to say, like, I can do this. So, you know, until I prove myself wrong, I'll do everything I can to make it right. Now, I'm not going to throw good money after bad money. I was in banking. I understand that you don't do that. If you're starting to throw bad money over the hill, don't. That's not a good thing. But so really, that's how I did it. And you know, the other thing I like to tell people too when I do talks at high schools is set your goal high. Most people, believe it or not, most people don't know this. You probably know this. You're a sharp guy, successful. Most people always achieve 90% of their goal. I have a friend that is extremely wealthy. He's worth a lot of money, and he has not ever achieved his goal. He's fell short every time. But you know what? I'd burn my money if I had his money. And the people that I meet and the kids I tell them, I'm like, write down your goal and be realistic to a point, but make it high. You know, I failed my goal. I thought by the time I was 40, I'd own a G9 or I'd have some type of airplane. You know, I didn't get a plane. You know, I mean, I went to the extent that I got my pilot's license because I knew I was getting a plane. I had to get ready for that. Now, because I retired, if I didn't retire when I did, maybe I would have a private plane, but I failed at that. So I tell kids all the time, man, just set that goal high. And people that don't believe you and people that want to tell you you're not going to make it, don't give them any energy. You only put your energy towards positive things. Like, you're better off instead of getting sucked down a hole of negative things, you're better off volunteering your time to give away food that no one knows you're doing it. You're not going to get anything for it. Wear a mask. Just do it so you're not known. And I'm exaggerating by saying wear a mask, but I'm saying, don't do it for the applause. Don't do it to be on TV. Do it for the right reason. That positive energy that you get out of that is going to be better. And anybody telling you that you can't do it, stay away from them. Don't surround yourself around people that don't believe.
Yeah, it's shoot for the stars and land on the moon.
Yes.
And so I wholeheartedly, like the two things I take away from that is, one, have unrealistic expectations and then fall short of something massive,
right? Rather
than shoot for something small and wind up smaller. And so I think that's extremely important. Yeah. I also really like the aspect of, I try to tell the
But let's also, before we get off on a tangent, I think the guy that wants to make, $50,000 a year, he's going to make 40,000. The guy that wants to, like my one buddy, he wants to make 10 million a year. He's going to make 2 or 3 million a year. I know it. He fell short.
I try to tell the construction guys that work with me on the job site is this job is going to get done. Regardless if you guys are here, it's going to get done. And so you guys I'm extremely grateful that you guys are here and working with me and side by side, and we're putting the tears and the sweat in, but it's going to get done one way or another, whether it's me doing every single framing by hand. On our first home that we built, I did the framing by myself, I did the plumbing by myself, I did the electrical by myself, and then we were able to bring in other people to help, of course, but it's going to get done. And if you have enough will to do something, you're going to get it done, and it's just not giving up on that process.
I agree. And you have to be willing to do it. If I'm not willing to clean a toilet in one of my lodging units, I shouldn't own it.
And also, at least for me, I needed to be able to learn everything so that I knew, one, whether or not I was going to get ripped off on a bid, or two, if I can't fix it, then what use do I have? Right. So I wanted to know how my electrical was run. I wanted to know we are in freezing temperatures and we're completely off grid. So if our off grid battery setup doesn't work and our pipes freeze, I need to know where every single pipe is so I can replace it.
I love that. I do the same thing. Like I built this building. I pulled wire through it. I pushed plumbing through it. And I think that the one thing that people should take from that is what you said about, what to pay someone. Because I've seen bids. I recently had a guy bid a job for me for $15,000, and I'm not a shrewd negotiator. I don't work people. Well, his bid was $15,000, and we agreed on $5,000 because I knew that his bid was $10,000 over what it should be.
You know the amount of work and the materials that go into a project, and they do too. So having that knowledge just to not get ripped off, I think is extremely important. Right,
because it adds up quickly. If you get several contractors that are you're paying $10,000 more than you should be, you're in trouble.
Hey, real quick, if you're interested in learning about short-term rentals, how to start a short-term rental business, we have a free masterclass that goes over all of the steps in starting a short-term rental business, from choosing your market, to buying land, to choosing structures that generate a very high return on your investment, building out a dream team, property management softwares, direct booking softwares or channels. We have it all for you. Feel free to check out the link in the description of this video for the free masterclass. Now back to the video. Okay, so let's go back to this property. You have the first treehouse built. No one's renting it. You have 2 homes at this point on the property?
Just the one treehouse and the Mohican house.
Gotcha. And then walk me through the timeline from when this wedding venue was built to when the second tree house that Pete Nelson built.
So in a 3-year period, I went from building to renting 3 cabins, 2 tree houses, and a house and the wedding with the wedding venue in there. So really, we did a big portion of our build in 3 years and got them on the market in 3 years. And then slowly we added more tree houses and more tree houses. And that I built out of cash flow. I used my cash flow to do it. And it seems I built maybe 1 treehouse a year after that. And each year became much more difficult. The first year I built them, my Amish carpenter, who's really smart, 8th grade education, he did the drawings that my architect does today. He didn't, then now today I'm hiring a structural engineer. He was my structural engineer. 10 years ago, he pulled all my wire. Now it's an electrical engineer or electrician with a license, and the same with the plumber. So the whole times have changed. Going back, if I could have built all my tree houses the first year, I would have. Where I probably made a mistake is I probably should have sought out capital. And I didn't want to do that, and I didn't have to, so I didn't.
So walk me through that capital part. With the land, did you buy it in cash or finance it?
Pay cash.
Okay, so then you own the land outright.
Yeah.
And then on the wedding venue and the first treehouse and the first home, did you finance those builds or did you do it in cash?
No, I used my cash.
Okay.
Because I just sold a business.
Okay, great. So then so now you're into this property with a treehouse, a lodge, all of your 3 lodging and your wedding venue in cash. Do you have any debt on your properties?
I do. It's not that much. I mean, compared to the appraisal value, it's probably around 10%.
Oh, wow. And then was that just to grow the structures, like the structure count, or why did you take that capital?
It eased my partner's worries. If we're sitting on a bunch of cash, because I could have done it all out of cash. So you decided to finance it to kind of keep some of that cash in hand? Yeah.
I gotcha. Were you able to depreciate any of the sale of the consulting business through this entity?
No, it wasn't.
So you had to pay taxes on the full exit of the consulting business.
Yeah, and capital gains were a lot more than.
I gotcha. If you were going to do it all again, would you have done it a different way?
Oh, totally. I would have.
Which way would you have done it?
I would have found a way to do a like-kind exchange, and I would have done this building out of that.
What's a like-kind exchange?
It's when you don't have to pay capital gains on taxes. If you sell a property for a gain, you don't have to pay capital gains on it. So you buy a property for $150,000.
Like a 1031.
I'm not sure what a 1031 is. I haven't done taxes in years.
Yeah, so it's basically when you buy a house and you take the capital gains and put it into another property, you don't have to pay the capital gains on it. Okay. That's I'm not an accountant.
I'm sorry,
I'm going to look at the camera. I'm not an accountant. This is not tax advice.
Okay. I used to work for Ernst & Young.
Okay.
I was one once. When I quit that job, that's another long story. I quit it to sell teddy bears out of the back of my car.
What made you choose that?
Well, everybody around me thought it was a dumb idea. My parents sat me down and said, look, you're working for the largest accounting firm in the world. You're walking away from this good job. Don't do it. And it was too late. I didn't tell anybody. But they said that afterwards in my family, everybody was shocked that I'm going to sell teddy bears. But in my mind, what I was doing was I went to college, graduated in 3.5 years with 3 degrees. I was a finance major, a management major, and an accounting major. And I thought with those degrees, if I worked for an accounting firm for 3 years and I learned how to sell teddy bears, I could rule the world. I thought, I have everything down. I have the numbers. I could talk FICO, LIFO, whatever you want to talk about at a business table, but I can also sell them. I mean, because when I started my consulting business, what helped me more than, the one thing that helped me when I started a consulting business was my resume said Ernst & Young. They loved that, and I worked for a bank. But when I started my consulting business, being able to sit down with someone and sell them, walk into a bodega at 1 PM when they're busy and say, hey, I need 15 minutes of your time while they're trying to run their store. To make that sale was harder than anything. So really, starting my consulting business was easy. I mean, selling bankers is a lot easier than selling a florist or a bodega.
The word risk jumps out to me as you're speaking here.
Is that because I had 3 kids when I quit Ernst & Young? And my wife didn't work and she was in the middle of getting her college degree?
Yeah, a little bit. And then starting this, you've taken a tremendous amount of risk in your life, it sounds like. What do you think was the impetus for you to do that?
I always looked at the worst case scenario. Like when I started selling teddy bears, I knew I could go back to accounting. When I started my consulting business, I knew I could go back to banking. When I started this business, this treehouse business, I knew I could I'm not going to go hungry. You know what? If I lose everything tomorrow, I'm a great bartender. I can clean tables, make $200 a day. I always had that, what can I fall back on? Can I still feed my kids? Well, you know, I fed them when I was in college. I had 2 kids before I graduated from college with no financial assistance. You know, so I'm not afraid of losing. I'm actually, and I kind of wish I could do it again. You know, when I was at the peak of my career in consulting, I remember seeing these 2 young guys looking at me and they're like, man, that motherfucker's got a nice business. I like that. And I was looking at these 2 young guys going, man, those fucking guys have it. They got nothing. They got it. They got the chance. They got the chance to win. And I was thinking, I'm just getting fat, dumb, and lazy with this consulting firm. You know, I was turning down more work than I did. And talk about risk. When I started the consulting firm, the business I did, only 2 businesses did it in the United States. And one went out of business due to competition partially because of us, went out of business the first year I started my consulting business. So nobody was doing it. I mean, I did consulting for banks, and a lot of banks at the time said, we'll never hire outside consultants, but we did it. But my whole point is I had something that I could fall back on. Like today, if I go broke, I could be a bartender, you know? And I had that confidence knowing it. I mean, we're the 1%. If you were born in the United States, you were born the 1%. I mean, this is a place where I can go get a free phone if I need it. If I don't have lodging, I can get an apartment. The government's going to pick that up. And the opportunity where people are coming here, immigrants are coming here, and they're becoming very successful because they're hustling. I mean, I don't know many countries you can go to and hustle like you can in the U.S. and become what you want. Having that to fall back on, I was never afraid of anything.
Yeah, I love the idea of having to fall back on you, having to fall back on your skill set. And I think that there's something super valuable in that. And I felt like we just finished our 4 builds, and I built them off of credit cards. So 26% interest. Talking to someone who's done banking and consulting, you probably are having your skin crawl. But
well, my first consulting firm, I got credit card deep in because I quit my job. I didn't have a paycheck, and I had 3 kids, 2 kids at a time. No, I'm not averse to people telling me they use their credit cards. I'm impressed because I was partially doing that when I started the only thing I had back then was, I think I had a little equity in my house that I could have pulled out.
Yeah, I had nothing. I had my entire rental business got shut down, 7 units, doing pretty well. And
shut down.
The county shut us down.
When you say that on camera, do people realize what that is? Like getting shut down is, you know, like telling the guy, you can't make a living tomorrow. I mean, that's crippling. Overnight,
we're doing, I mean, I'm pretty honest about it. We're doing $250,000 a year, and within like 30 days, 0. And so I have these units that can't make money, and $250,000 in the grand scheme of things is not a lot of money, but at 24, it was the foundation that I needed to start something and grow something. And that got taken out immediately. So I'm now with Airstreams and campers that have no value besides the actual units themselves, but basically no value, and have no cash flow. And now I have to build 4 ground up homes, tiny homes that are fully permitted with the county. And so I had to basically do it while not making money, build for a year, living in an Airstream with my girlfriend. It was the best times and the worst times, but I go back to take it full circle. I go back to, I knew at the end of the day that I had a skill set of film. And if I needed, I could go to a business and say, pay me X amount of money and I will shoot and edit a brand story and these 20 deliverables for you, and I can get paid an X amount of money, and that'll fund me for the next month or 2 of my life.
So you're agreeing with me, having a fallback is a great thing.
But having a fallback on your skill set.
Right.
And I think that there's a difference there. Having a fallback on money, for me, wasn't as value as having a fallback on my skill set. Like, I would prefer to have a skill set that I can make an X amount of money than have X amount of money as my backup plan.
Got you.
And so I think that little nuance for me gave me the motivation to keep on going. So you have this home. At any part in this, when did permitting start becoming an issue here, and did it become an issue?
Yeah, I would say probably about 8 year ago. And the hard
Where
part
were you on the build at that point?
I would say after we had three tree houses and the wedding venue, that's when it came into play. So really, the last, I'd say, 7 tree houses that we built, we had permitting issues. And the problem I have with the government and the permits is we didn't know. We'd call the state and talk to them, and all of a sudden they just decided that you have to have an electrician do it. And then the next year when we did a treehouse, we found out that it had to be a licensed plumber. And then the next year we found out that, now they want a structural engineer. But then you're dealing with the state, and they're like, this guy's a wild card here. We've been dealing with him for 4 years. He hasn't done anything right. Well, how do you know? You know, like I'm sure we could have done better due diligence with the state, but them just coming up with these rules over time is hard building.
Did they make you change any of your pre-existing units, or were your pre-existing units?
No, and thank God they didn't. But the state varies. Like for me to build a treehouse, and this is important for people to understand, is for me, I have to have all those things that I mentioned earlier. Okay, now if I build at Hocking Hills, I have to go get a permit, like I do here. I have to go get the EPA approved for my septic. And then I have to, third is, build it. No electrician, no plumber, no structural engineer, no drawings. So for me to compete with Hocking Hills, I'm on a different ground. Mm-hmm. All they're doing that I'm doing is pulling a permit and contacting the EPA for the septic. They're not jumping through any other hoops.
Same in Arizona, we can do it as an owner-builder.
Okay.
And so if we have a residential property, short-term rentals are governed at a state level, and as long as you have a residential property that's built to code, you're able to rent it out as short-term rental.
Okay.
And so we built all of our stuff as owner-builder.
Okay.
So we didn't have to we submitted our plans, and as long as the county signed off on the plans, then we were fine to build.
Okay. And that's the problem we have here is we don't have a county to sign off on the plans. So it goes to the state level. So I'm under the same code as if you're building a residential house or a commercial building in Columbus, Ohio.
Wow.
But not Hocking Hills. And that's why Hocking Hills is a great place to build now. I mean, for example, the Little Red Treehouse took me 3 years to get the drawings approved. Now, 3 years. Now, what happened was they sent it to their first examiner, and then he had questions, and we answered them. And then they sent it to the second examiner, and we answered them. Then we sent him to the third one, and he didn't like our structural engineer. So we had to go hire another structural engineer. So this last treehouse has taken me 4 years to build. Now, before that, the other 10 I built, and I say 10, and the math doesn't add up because I have 10 treehouses, but the other 10 I built, we built in less than a year for everything. But this treehouse has taken me 4 years. I mean, because I look at how many tree houses I build a year or how many years it takes me to build a tree house, and it's totally skewed now.
Yeah, that's wild. So you're up and running. You have the wedding venue and the tree houses and the other lodging. The next part is to get customers in the door and start generating income. Direct booking channels. You have a website yourself, and
Yes.
then you are on some other platforms. Walk me through kind of the development of that direct booking channel that you guys currently have.
Well, I feel that when we went through that, it was evolving. The industry was evolving. I think the industry is much bigger now, and we went through a bunch of different platforms. But we found Cloud Beds as one of our best booking right now. And as far as advertising, we're really fortunate because people come from all over the world to get married here. And when they do, they want all the lodging. So I'm really fortunate, I thank God every day, that I have the wedding venue because we can have 200 people in this building. And most of them are coming from out of state on a lot of these weddings. A lot are in-state, and they need lodging. Or the people that are coming from in-state, they still need lodging. So I do a lot of bookings without using Airbnb and other platforms.
How do you think that the revenue would differ if you had just the lodging and no wedding venue?
I would have to be on Airbnb. I would have to be on some platforms like that, and I'd have to give a significant amount of money away. And I'd have to do more marketing. I feel that my marketing job isn't that hard here because of the wedding venue. So I focus on renting the place during the week and in the off season, getting people here more than I do in the summers, weekends.
Yeah, now that we're talking about this, I really think that it's interesting. I feel like your final destination, as part of that 30-10 or 60-30-10 rule, where that 30 minutes is your final destination, I feel like you've created a final destination. You've created a place where people want to travel and have a wedding. Therefore, you're now giving them the opportunity to stay in a resort or in the treehouses.
Yes.
For example, our place in Arizona, we're 20 minutes away from the Grand Canyon. People are already going to the Grand Canyon. They just use our accommodation as a place to stay while they're visiting the Grand Canyon. What you've done is you've artificially created the Grand Canyon as your wedding venue, and then you are now using your tree houses as the accommodation for this final destination.
Yes, it's so true. It's so true. And I mean, the structure is so beautiful. We're having couples come from New York and tell us it's less expensive for us to get married here. I mean, if you're going to get married in New York City or Chicago, you're looking at $75,000 to $100,000 wedding bill. Where come to Ohio, you could pay for your guest airfare just about and lodging, and sometimes it's going to be less expensive.
It's amazing. So you're on Cloudbeds as your management. But your direct booking actual website is not a Cloudbeds website. Did you guys have that built by engineers? How was that built?
I have a consultant that I hired to do that, outside consultant.
And they built the actual website.
Yes.
And then the actual property management aspect of it is done through Cloudbeds.
Yeah, but back to your point earlier, I did it. I built the website. I need to, if I'm going to call up and tell my person that's running my website he's doing it wrong, I'm going to have done it. So I tell people all the time, build your website yourself at first. And I'm not saying keep it, but if you ever want to manage your website, you have to know how it's built.
Yeah.
And I could give you an example of that. We had one person working on our website when we converted it. And what do they call those meta images where you put the words in? All the words were wrong on over 1,000 pictures. And myself being myself, I look at those things and I start looking at this and where we were coming up on Google. We fell off of Google for a while. And I'm like, why are we off of Google? So I started looking into it and I look at the words, because Google does two things. It shows the customer what they want to see. And then as a business owner, it looks at the backside. And my backside, the words were wrong. So we would have a picture of like two people sitting down at their dinner table, like here, the bride and groom. And it would say man and woman at table instead of bride and groom at wedding venue. So if I wouldn't have known the words were wrong, I couldn't have corrected my meta tags.
Yeah. I think that, there's so many different aspects of this, which leads me to my next question of what do you think the number one thing that you learned in business outside of this that you brought into, whether it's your consulting firm or your job at Ernst & Young? What do you think the number one skill set that you brought into this business is?
My background really helped me at looking at the numbers and to keep looking at the numbers. And that's not something everybody can learn that, even if you don't have my background. If you keep asking the questions, I think a better answer for your question is asking questions. I learned my other business is to ask questions. If you ask the right question, you can find your way. If you keep digging and digging. And people are afraid to ask questions because I think a lot of times they feel that they may look stupid, that they're asking a question. And I don't mind looking stupid, or maybe I appear sometimes. That's okay with me because I'd rather learn it. But I think that's probably it, to ask the right questions, because people want to give you the information. I mean, I'm sure Warren Buffett would love to sit down with you or I and let us ask him a million questions.
Yeah, I heard this influencer talk about Warren Buffett, and she had the opportunity of sitting down with him,
Awesome.
and she didn't get a single question off to him.
No.
It was just him asking questions the entire time. I think curiosity is such a undervalued skill that is not taught, and to throw away all type of ego and just be curious.
Yeah, you got to be curious.
It's Ted Lasso right there. So in the last podcast, we talked about 95% of your bookings were direct bookings. Walk me through kind of the marketing play that you guys do in order to achieve that.
It's really the weddings. You know, quite often the brides will come in on a Wednesday, or grooms will come in on midweek Wednesday, and they're taking a lot of the lodging then. And then, of course, the night of the wedding, and because we're doing weddings Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, those nights are booked for me. So really, I don't have to do a lot of marketing for there. I'm surprised that I don't have to do more marketing for the weekends. You know, it's such a draw that the people that aren't, if there's any units empty, they're easily scooped up. Like, it's impossible to get a lodging on a Saturday night in the summer or during wedding season, being May through November.
How do you do marketing for your weddings?
I try to get as much exposure as I can. I mean, I'll take any exposure. As I mentioned earlier, college radio, I'll do that all day long. If I could get our name out anywhere, if we could, donate, we'll donate. I throw bridal shows. I think those are really important to have those. I try to stay in the community. As Elon Musk says, success is 99% perspiration, 1% genius, But I just constantly try to get out there. I mean, anytime, and I go through everything. I'm going to the tourist industry and saying, give me all the email addresses for everybody that does lodging businesses and all the TV stations, all the newspapers. I'm contacting local newspapers 200 miles from here, 2 states away. Anybody that will write about us, I ask them to write about us. And I'm surprised how often they will. I'll send out an email blast. First go to the state of Ohio, find out who the TV stations are, and then the newspapers, and then blast them with emails. And eventually they're going to listen to you. For 5 years, the state of Ohio said to me, Kevin, we're not putting your treehouse on the cover of our magazine. And every year I went back and they said, look, we're not here to advertise your treehouse. I said, okay, I understand. And then one day the lady calls me up and she said, I loved your idea of the treehouse. We're going to put it on the cover. And we got it on the cover, 700,000 copies. And that just came through asking, not taking no. That's what I think people should really strive to do is never take no. Just keep going at it. And if it doesn't work this year, it may work next year. I've had TV stations come out and say, you've been calling me for 5 years. And that's why I'm here today. And that's another thing you don't realize when you start. I didn't know this, that when you contact somebody and you try to get them to rep you, them saying no is not a big deal. They want to say no to you like 5 times before they say yes. I mean, like if you quit after 4 times, you may have gotten them the 5th because that's how many times they want to say no.
The power of one more.
Yes, one more.
After a wedding or after a stay in one of your tree houses, what do you want a bride to say? What type of emotion or experience are you looking for a guest or a bride to have?
Can I swear?
Sure.
Where'd we fuck up? I don't care what we did right. I don't. Where'd we fuck up? The honest truth. We had one year where this girl, I let her take the phone home for like 3 months and answer the phone from home. She quit answering it. I went on I went on one of these websites for weddings and I was getting criticized. And I would have never known she wasn't answering the phone if the girl didn't criticize me. The review said, she gave me a bad review. They said they don't return phone calls. I'm like, wait a minute. And I tested it out. And you know what? I did 20 less weddings the next year. 20. I went from 60 weddings. I went from 40 weddings first year to 60 to 80. She quit answering the phone. The next year I did 60. And then I did 90.
Just the power of not answering a phone.
Yeah, and you know what? You have to get it in their face. You have to like find a way politely to be bump into them, be on the grounds, and or contact them and say, "Hey, can you tell me what we did wrong or right?" And I stressed the wrong, and they'll tell you, and you always get better.
What's your system for collecting that feedback now?
It's the same. It's the same. I try to get it, but I have to say, the last 4 years, I've been taking. I have not been as active in this, but about 8 months ago, I started getting more active. I went off and started another business during COVID, but now that I'm back, it'd be the same way. I mean, there's so much importance in you being there, like walking the grounds before the wedding, after the wedding, while they're here. You know, you if you're not willing to get involved in your customers, you're not going to understand them or understand what's going on with your business.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to pivot here and go to your dream team. Now, typical short-term rental operations, you typically have cleaners, handyman, maybe an on-site property manager, but obviously with a wedding venue, it's so much more extensive. What does that dream team look like for you?
It's the same as what you said before that, except, you know, I have to have someone here during the wedding, you know, and I have to have someone that's good with brides. I have to have someone just like the other business where they're willing to do it, you know, to do the work, to go the extra mile. You know, I remember I bumped into a cleaning girl here, and she said, "Oh, Mr. Mooney, I hope you don't mind. I was coming out of a unit. I was walking by a unit the other day, and they told me their TV was broke. And I went home and I got my TV and I brought it to them last night. And she was a cleaner. And I said, wait a minute, we need to talk." And I didn't even know her name at the time because my wife hired her. I said, "Come down to my office. I want to talk to you." And 6 months later, she was running the place. 6 months later, you know, when you have to have that person that when you leave your facility, you know everything's going to be done. You know that they're going to go the extra distance. And that's been the key that I've had a few people like that. You know, they're hard to find, but not if you're looking for them. If you're looking for that person, they'll appear.
What do you think the best way to find A-class talent like that is?
Talk to everybody. You know, talk to everybody and put it out there. When people start businesses, I think one mistake they made is they don't throw their energy to the universe. They don't feel like everybody they bump into, they're not telling them. Like if you start a business, share it with everybody. Say, someone says, "What's new?" "Well, I'm starting a business." You know, you never know where your business is going to come from. When I started my couple businesses, I was able to get a lot of revenue from places I never expected and people I never expected. But it was really by just talking to people everywhere I went. If I'm in an elevator and I meet someone, "What do you do?" "Well, I have treehouses. I have a wedding venue." You know, and then you'll be shocked at how many times you'll get a phone call saying, "Oh yeah, you bumped into my dad or mom. They told me about your wedding venue. I want to see it." You know?
I love that. So you have multiple people working on this property all at the same time, and you and your wife are partners in this. How do you divide your responsibilities with you and your wife?
You know, it kind of comes together because she understands what I'm going to do and I understand what she's going to do. I know when I build a treehouse and it's 90% done, I can just walk away from it. And when I say 90% done, the linens aren't picked out. The stuff you buy from Home Depot isn't there. The unique twist, interior decorating, she jumps in. But we have a really good team together. You know, we have some disagreements. I advise people, you know, if you Google it, 80% of marriages end after they start a business. You know, I don't recommend it to everybody, but we've had a good business relationship before this business, so we're fortunate.
What do you do specifically, and then what does she do specifically? Like, how do those roles differ?
It's evolved over the years. At the beginning, I was doing a lot. She was doing the bookkeeping, and I was doing the building and hiring everybody to do the building. But now she's doing a lot more of the day-to-day operations. You know, I like building businesses. Like, I'm a better businessman when I'm broke. I'm a better businessman when it has zero revenue. So my natural tendency is to build it and then just manage it from above. You know, like I'm still making the decisions and helping her with some of the big picture stuff. But the day-to-day, now that it's built, I almost want to start another one,
Another treehouse resort and venue?
Yeah.
Where would you choose?
I would probably take it around the Sandusky area, near the water on Lake Erie, between Cleveland and Toledo.
I was going to say, from someone who's not from here, is that in Ohio?
Yeah, it's in Ohio. It's in Ohio. It's a beautiful area. And it would pull from Cleveland. It'd pull from Toledo, Detroit, Chicago. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Here's something that is kind of not talked about in the industry as much as I wish it was talked about, is insurance. Having tree houses is for someone who doesn't do tree houses would be a little bit nerve-wracking to me. How does insurance work for a wedding venue, but also for tree houses?
It's similar. There's and it depends on where you're at. Like my son pays $1,000 a month in insurance because he's in Washington and he has a house on the property and a tree house, and there's a high risk of fire. In Ohio, I think we're fortunate. We're not overly charged for insurance because it's a tree house. I mean, when you think about a tree house, it's in a living structure. It's hard for the insurance companies to insure them. It's not easy to find insurance. And I think there may be a day that they won't insure them. I mean, if you think about it, it's in a living object. If you're the insurance company, do you want to insure it? How do you know that tree's not hollow? When I took my first treehouse building class, we had this beautiful tree in the middle of this deck, and we x-rayed it. And it was unsafe to be up. I mean, literally, the x-ray showed that it was hollow. So how does the insurance company know that? There's so much there. And in Mother Nature, trees die all the time. Unfortunately, we don't always know why.
Now, you told me that you do some reoccurring mitigation of risk along the path of inspecting your trees. How does that whole work?
We inspect them every 6 months, and then we hire someone to do it also. But what people are telling us, inspectors are telling us, is that every year that goes by, we're safer and safer because the structure attaches to the bolts stronger and stronger as the years go on, and they become safer and safer.
That's pretty remarkable. I wouldn't think that was a thing, but so the actual tree is wrapping around the bolt that's attached to the tree?
It swallows it. It literally will consume it. It'll just keep growing around it, and then you have to back off your bolts and move your structures sometimes.
That's amazing. How did you learn all of that?
Well, I tell everybody, if you're going to build a treehouse, you have to take the class. There's only one class, and that's at Out and About Treehouses. It's in Oregon. I think it's in Eugene, Oregon. But if you Google Out and About Treehouses, they'll advertise their class. You have to go out there and learn it because you're learning about how to build bridges. You're learning the safety. They'll test the bolts while you're there. And that was important to me. I wanted to see the testing before I put it in a tree because I didn't really believe it. I wanted to see. But during the class, we actually took a 10,000-pound device, put it on the bolt, pushed it, and it wouldn't break. It bent a little bit after, I think, 20 or 30,000 pounds. But yeah, I tell them, take a class.
That's incredible. I know nothing about tree houses, and I like the idea that the tree is the actual foundation of it. And I like the idea of the fact that you're able to learn that there is data out there that allows you to move forward with a safe structure as your foundation. And that's pretty remarkable. What are the next steps for this beautiful resort of yours?
I don't know. We're going through permits right now, and we need to work something out with them because the way it's set up right now, I'm maxed out. 2 years ago, they decided to change the regulations, and they changed it to that if you build tree houses in this area or lodging, you can only have 1 unit per 5 acres, which is exactly what I have now. But I believe that I could get grandfathered into the old laws. But right now, as it stands, I might not be able to get a permit because what they did was they came up with a square footage, and I'm not sure what they were thinking because they came up with you can't build anything under 300 square feet. And the last time I did research, the hottest part of the real estate market in the world, in the United States, in Ohio, in anywhere, is tiny houses. I mean, people are renting them out more than 5,000 square foot cabins, a 280 foot tiny house. I don't know why they don't want them, but for some reason, this area doesn't want tiny houses or more than one lodging unit per 5 acres, which is crazy because most treehouse villages I've seen or resorts, you normally have maybe 5 to 10 units on 15 acres.
You mentioned possibly going and doing another one. Is that?
I'm going to pursue doing more here first because in total, I think we own 112 acres between this place and a place that I have down the road. So I'd rather keep building here because I have my machines here. I have my Amish carpenters, and it would work much better here. And I might be able to go off the utilities.
Yeah, great.
But utilities are important. People have to look into that. I mean, because that I'm sure you talk about on your podcast. If you're going to put all your if you're going to use your utilities for 5 cabins or tree houses, one septic, that's a whole different price than 5 septics. My son built a tree house recently, and it was a little over $300,000 to build it. And the prices are going up. I mean, guys that when I were hiring them to be carpenters 10 years ago, they were, say $20 to $30 for an hour to be a carpenter. Well, now they're treehouse builders. So they're $75 to $150 an hour.
Yeah. Building real estate has gone up tremendously. I'm surprised. I mean, just in the year I was building, cost of materials were going up on me. And that's interesting that you mentioned about the utility thing. We're completely off grid. And so I have a strong belief that I can put one of our homes anywhere in the world and we can bring utilities to it. Because we have developed a solar package for our homes that we can run AC all year round. We can run all of our electricity all year round. We haul our water from the local well into 10,000 gallon water tanks. And then we have a septic unit that is built for the worst septic drain field ever.
Wow.
So all of our septic units are alternative-based septic units because our soil is only 10 inches deep. And so basically the water that comes out of our septic unit is basically purified already.
You're kidding.
Yeah, because our depth of soil is so low. But
yeah.
I do think it is important to, I mean, I go back to education, right? That's 90% of it. As long as you are able and willing to learn about off-grid life, you can make it work. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars worth, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of mistakes on doing utilities the wrong way. So that's part of the mission here, right? Is to educate people.
Well, let me ask you this. I understand the 3 parts. The water, I don't understand. Do you have to treat the water?
Which water?
The water you bring in.
The water we bring in, yeah, we have a filter so it comes in hard right now. Right now, we don't have a softener yet.
Okay.
But we do run it through a filter before it goes in. And we tell all of our guests, hey, this is local well water that comes from our local well, and we haul it in. So we tell all of our guests ahead of time. And if you are specific about the water you drink, you might want to buy some water, drinking water to bring.
Got you.
But it's totally fine to shower in and all of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. What kind of filter system do you use?
I couldn't tell you the specific ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out. We've had a couple filters here because not every well is good water. Big picture wise, approximately how much more is it to be off the grid from on the grid? If you had
Not
to
that much
ballpark it?
more.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm
so
shocked.
Our electrical system is about $30,000 per home. All of our big appliances that use a tremendous amount of electricity, we turn into gas. So our stovetop is gas, our water heater is gas, and our heater is gas. So
Wait, where do you get the gas from?
So there's a local propane company that
Okay.
fills in. We rent a tank for $75 a year, and they fill it up, and it's about $1,000 every time they fill up, and we only have to fill it up once a year
For how many units?
per unit. One
Per unit, okay.
Yeah. And
That's not
that's
bad
just
at all.
that's baked into our P&Ls.
Okay.
And so $1,000, so it's about $1,000 a year in propane. We go through about water's pretty high because we have to get someone to haul it from the gas station to our unit. And so we pay about $360 a month in water. And then but we save the money off electricity. And so all of our electricity is that $30,000 setup
Upfront.
fee, but then we don't have an electricity bill.
Got you. That's awesome.
And so we're able to operate off grid. I do think that if I would go a larger scale like your property, it's extremely difficult to do that off grid. I would highly recommend doing that connected to power and water.
Solar would be tough in the woods.
Yeah.
I looked into it.
Which is also a very interesting thing. We threw the drone up, and with a drone above your property, you cannot see anything is here.
Isn't that crazy?
Which is pretty
Except for the
remarkable.
parking lot.
Except for the parking lot. Everything else is fully covered by
Yeah.
trees. And in order to get any type of videography in here, you have to fly a drone in between the trees, which we have a lot of fun B-roll for.
I've heard a lot of drones go down here because of the trees.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some new operators.
Yeah. Luckily, I'm a licensed pilot, so we're good
good.
there. This was an interesting question that I think that would help me understand more about your guys' revenue. How do you think having tree houses has affected your nightly rate compared to having normal lodges? And I guess you can compare and contrast your treehouse revenue compared to your lodges revenue. Now, obviously, having a wedding venue that is the experience that people are coming for, the occupancy rate is less of what I'm curious about, because you could throw anything up here and you're going to rent it out because of the experience. But I really want to dive into the quality of the experience of the treehouse. How does that differ than any other experience?
Well, the experience is priceless, but it's not for everybody. But if you're into that, you're really into the tree houses. And I think that tree houses can bring in more per dollar, more revenue per night than my cabins. Not so much the houses, because the houses are so big and beautiful, so much bigger, and they sleep so many more people. But revenue-wise, I think if I did it again, I would just build tree houses, not cabins, because of my occupancy rate.
So there's a sizable difference. There's a sizable difference between tree houses and other type of lodging due to the experience.
Yes, due to the experience. People will pay for the experience of a tree house. They'll pay more than they'll pay for a cabin.
If you were going to quantify it in like percentages, how much more?
I would say 20%, but you might spend more building the tree house than building a cabin or tiny house that's not a tree house.
But that goes back to spend more up front, and then in the long run, you'll make more money.
Yes. It's it's about the great experience too, of just enjoying it.
Last time I asked you about hills that you would die on.
Oh.
And you before we started this podcast, you said that you had a better answer. I'm curious.
I think last time, I can't remember what I said, but I don't think it was what I wanted to say. And it's really the one thing hill I'll die on is quality. You know, when I was trying to liquidate my assets to pay for this building, I was moving cash around and it was getting expensive, and cash was tight, and I was trying to save money. And on the one house I was living in down here, I had to buy a countertop. Well, I bought a piece of drywall, and I carved out a sink, and I laminated the drywall, and I put that on my countertop. That I lived in this house. The same week, I'm buying a countertop for a treehouse, and I'm spending $5,000 on granite. And I didn't care if it was $10,000, because I'm gonna make it the best I can do. And there's nothing. I didn't see many things that I thought that's too expensive. You know, like we didn't go to Home Depot and say, give us that $200 sink. I went out and I found the most beautiful sink I could find, even if it was 5 times the cost. The door on this treehouse over here, I think was $5,000. I could have spent $500 at Home Depot. but it's the quality, and that's the hill I'll die on. Is I'm not going to provide anybody a lodging unit that isn't the best I could do. There's nothing. I mean, black walnut floors. I have a black walnut spiral staircase. Over here at the Tin Shed, we're working on the bridge, but the bridge took me 6 months to talk the Amish guy into building it. I didn't know what it was going to cost. I didn't care. So really the cost, I don't care about it. Did I care about the countertop at my house that I live in down here while I was building it? Yeah. I cared that I wasn't going to spend anything on it, but if it was my lodging unit, yeah, I was going to break the bank. That's the hill I'll die on. I have to have it the best I could do it and the nicest I could have it, like steam rooms. And we have a sauna. You can't skimp on your expenses. I mean, everybody has a budget, and you can't do everything you want in your budget, but you have to do it as nice as you can.
If you were going to choose an amenity or an experience to really break the bank with, and I'll give you a good example. We have no budget when it comes to our windows and doors. Whatever, we are going to spend the most amount of money on our windows and doors because, our company is called Stargazing. So we have a 4x6 skylight. Mm-hmm. We have these massive sliding doors. Whatever it costs, we're going to pay it. And so is there a specific experience or amenity that stands out to you that you're like, I don't care about the costs?
Well, I'm on page with you. The doors and windows, I don't either. But the one thing that jumps out at me is bridges. I don't care what a bridge costs me to build. I love that people have the experience. I love seeing the kids run across it. I hear the laughter. So I tried to do a bridge at every unit that we could. The first one I did ADA because I had a friend that was in a wheelchair at the time. So the treehouse, the white oak treehouse, you can wheel a wheelchair into it. But other than that, all bridges.
So that's so interesting to me. Bridges is the number one thing that you're willing to I don't care what it costs. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I also think that now that I'm thinking about this, that is the experience of a treehouse, right?
Yeah.
We have the skylight that you're able to lay back on and watch the stars at night while you're laying in bed. You have the bridges that you're able to run across to go to your treehouse. And I think there's something valuable in, what's the word? It's like bringing back to your childhood.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Reliving.
Help from the audience out here. Nostalgia. I think that there is a tremendous power in nostalgia.
Yeah.
As a kid, laying outside and looking up at the stars, and then when I think of tree houses, I think of running across a bridge to a tree house. How do you think that nostalgia plays into your business?
A lot, and staring at the stars is one of them. I mean, that's the one comment I get all the time down here is like where you're at. There's not a lot of lights to drown them out. And I have people tell me all the time, last night we laid in the field for an hour and just stargazed. That's one of the things that they like the most.
It's amazing.
And I love your units. And I was looking at those skylights. We'll have to talk about those too, because everywhere you go here, you see the skylights. They're in the upper mezzanine here. They're in the upper mezzanine over where the bride gets ready. And you probably love my windows because I too I broke the budget on a lot of windows here.
That's it's such a necessary aspect to, I think, short-term rentals in general. I think having a tremendous amount of natural light plays into an experience, especially if you're in a really pretty location.
Yes.
This is such a pretty location that you want to bring people's eye out to the experience. Something that you've also done really well that I want to acknowledge is you've built a lot of your tree houses visually for the consumer, which I think is something important to really think about. Is the ability to photograph your units is really, really easy. And it brings a tremendous amount of, the kids nowadays use FOMO. I guess that's an older term now, but you bring a lot of FOMO out in people. And when people post on social media, your photos and your units are very eye-catching. Did you do the build of your units on purpose for that? How much before the build process were you thinking of, this is going to photograph really well, this is going to play in magazines very well, I'm going to lean towards this?
100%, 100%. I mean, I remember taking down barns, thinking this is going to be the west wall on a treehouse. And this one's going to, this white will stand out. I mean, I shopped barns that people were taking down. We took down red barns, we took down white barns, brown barns, and I tried to incorporate those into the interior.
When you say you took down barns, meaning people were demolishing their barns, so you bought their...
Yes, like I bought barns before standing, and I brought people in to take them down. And
that's incredible.
Yeah.
So you're basically recycling your materials here.
Yes.
I didn't realize that a lot of your stuff is recycled.
Yeah, we'll go into some tree houses where you'll look up and you'll see hand-hewn beams. And if for those people that don't know what hand-hewn is, it's a person taking an adze, walking down a log, and just carving it into a square. And you'll see the adze marks from the axe/adze.
That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that was a lot of fun building them. And you know, you before you build something, you normally see it in your mind, and you know everything, every board where it's going to be, or just the color scheme. It's taking down the barns were as much fun as building them.
What do you think the next 20, 30, 50 years look like for this? Do you want your kids to take it over? Do you want this to stay in the family?
I think so. I think one of my kids will probably step forward and want to run it. Right now, we don't know for sure which one. I have a son in the lodging business that's on the West Coast, and then I have a daughter that lives on the East Coast. Both of them are capable, and then I have two sons in Cleveland. So one of them I think will want to do it. But the future, I think there's money to be made in, what do you guys call them, barndominiums?
Barndominiums. Yeah.
I think that's the next step. I started that. I started one 8 years ago. Actually, right near the lodging unit you stayed in.
Oh, nice.
I could show you that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started it. When I say started it, I bought the property. I took down all the siding on the barn and pulled off the roof, insulated the outside. Then I put wood on the inside and the outside, and then I roofed it.
It's amazing.
So it has a good start to it.
What do you think the core values of your guys' resort is when offering to guests? Like, if you were going to explain what this is to someone who doesn't live here or who's never seen it, how would you explain it?
I find it really hard to explain because I feel I have to give people a tour to get the whole experience. But if I had to just tell them over the phone, I'd tell them there's no place like it. You know, you're not going to go to any wedding venue in the country and tell your family that they can sleep in tree houses. And the quality is going to be great. And the experience is great. And as I said before, this venue isn't for everybody, but if you like it, you're going to love it. I mean, like, my daughter got married in New York City. She didn't get married here. You know, she wanted that different experience.
Was that a little bitter?
Can we cut the cameras? No, I dreamed of her getting married here, but I was happy that she was happy that she was getting married where she wanted to. But the people that come in here, and this is kind of what they want, they think they're going to like it, but they end up loving it. And we've had some really great feedback. The people that got married here. I mean, most of the people that originally got married here that booked it without seeing it, I went to them. And I found them when they were here and said, hey, you had your wedding here last night. The first time you saw this wedding venue was 2 days ago. How did we do? Did we lie to you? Did we cheat you? And they all said, you know what? Your pictures failed you guys because your pictures didn't show how beautiful it was. Most of the couples said, because at first we wouldn't take a deposit. We had people calling us saying, look, I want to rent your wedding venue. Here's my deposit. And like, no. You are not renting my building out till you see it. And at first they were coming back saying, well, I'm not going to be in Ohio until 2 days before my wedding. So I got nervous and I said, all right, I'll take your deposit. And then I hunted down all of them and asked them, how did we do? And they all said the same thing. It's much more beautiful than I thought. You know, and it's really the beauty. I mean, the materials that we used here, you're not buying at Home Depot. You know, the logs, the wood, the recycled barn siding, the hand-hewn wood beams. you're just going to get a different experience. But if you're not into that experience, maybe it's not your cup of tea. I don't know. I love it.
I love that. All right, last question. I asked you on this on the last podcast. I'm going to ask you again now, though. Is there a moment, a specific time, a specific moment that comes back to you that you think about of your why you created this, and if you can have one person recreate or re-experience that experience that has already occurred, your life would be happy. Is there one experience that solidifies that you've made the right decision in all this?
I think it was when my son came to me and we were walking the property, and he said, Dad, I get what you're doing. I said, what? He said, you want people to come out and touch the earth. And we're not talking about people playing in the dirt, but that's what that moment was for me. I was like, oh my gosh, he gets it. We want people to leave the city or wherever they're at, go out to nature, experience this wonderful place, and just kind of touch nature, drive over a stream. When you come in, you're going to see people canoeing or rafting on the river. I find that coming here and being here takes me away from the hustle and bustle of work, of corporate America. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get people away from their cell phones. I'm trying to get people away from off the internet. I want them, and I'm guilty of being on those too much. But when I'm here, I can't. We don't have Wi-Fi everywhere. And you put yourself out in nature, and I'm sure your place is like this, that you're not checking your phone as much. You're not checking your emails. We've had some guests stay here, and the guest book reads a complaint. My kids were unhappy, and by the end of the page, it says, thank you. They put their phone down. They talked. This was the first time that no one brought their phone to dinner table. So I think that's what it is. Once again, I said to myself when we started this we have to share this with people. We're just renting this land. I don't own this land. I don't own this building. In 50 years, someone else will own it. In 100 years, someone else will own it. And we try to consistently make things better. In our business, if you're not improving your business, it's going backwards. So every year you come here, you're going to see maybe a new patio here or a seating area there. Yep, that's it.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man. It's amazing to meet you in person, and it's even greater to see the beautiful facility that you've built.
Thanks, Lexington. I always enjoy talking to you. I'm always learning from you. You're a teacher.
Vice versa.
Thanks.